try to accomplish tonight is just give you an overview of what we're talking about development, about infrastructure, things like that. After that, make sure that we have your correct mailing address, correct email address, correct telephone number. Because staff will be contacting you for information to get permission to get on your property or whatever. I will be out of the loop. You'll be talking directly to staff. And staff will be talking to you about your property, about survey. They might make a schedule to say, what time do I need to be on your property, what time I can get your property, all about that. And so that's why it's very important to the landowner to make sure we get your correct information so we give it to staff and so staff can contact you. I will not be contacting you, staff will be contacting you. If you got a problem with staff, you talk to my office, talk to Angela, or talk to Maria Salazar. She'd be glad to give you staff the correct personal information. What we're trying to do on some of the property, there might be 4 or 5 different owners in consecutive in one row. Instead of having 4 different meetings, we might want to say, hey, can we get those 4 owners to come together to really kind of speed up the time to get stuff done. With that, I'm going to get started. My name is Tenell Atkins. I am the council for District 8. I am Chair Economic Development. And this is a great project. Believe it or not, this is a huge project. We're going to talk about trails. We're going to talk about development. We're talking about the dark rail line. We're talking about UNT, the growing. We are growing by leaps and bounds. The cities, they're going to put investment into your neighborhood. They're going to be a great neighborhood. But it's going to be up to staff to tell you the ideals, what we're going to do and what the city's going to do. It's not about me, about you. It's about you as a community, you as a landlord, a landowner to say, let's work together to get something done. So we got all these different departments here. So with that, since we are in the house of UNT, we have to call Bob Mom one of the best university presidents in the state of Texas. So Bob, in the world there, Bob Mom, show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
First of all, welcome to our campus. It's an honor for me to speak to you tonight. I hope you enjoy this new building. It's here, it's paid for by taxpayers, so it's your building. And I hope you can take advantage of it. There's 132,000 square feet here. And our students, it's for our students as well. It's for their needs. That's why it's here. Big library over there, big community hall here, lots of advising and tutoring in this building. So we're very proud of it, and the students helped design it. I just want to say a couple things that you may not know about our university. We are now officially the fastest growing of Texas's 38 state universities percentage increase, and it have been now for 3 consecutive years. The Texas State Coordinating Board lists us as the fastest growing, and as a result of that, and this is good for our students, we got a very warm reception at the Texas legislature this time, and we received the largest increase in formula funding in the state of Texas. So we had a very good legislature. They also gave us $2 million so that we could do more advising for our first time in college freshmen. Most of you know, I think, that we are unique in our mission here. We are the only 4 university, the only one, that focuses exclusively on urban Dallas, the inner ring suburbs, and the Dallas County Community College. 95% of our students come from the city, the inner ring suburbs, or the community college. No other university is even close. And that's why we're growing. We partner with area school districts. We have 2 early college high schools, one at Lincoln. And since we've gotten involved in Lincoln, enrollment has gone up again. They almost closed, the DIC almost closed Lincoln. Now the enrollment is growing. The same thing at Sunset High. Sunset is growing. So we have one that's a majority Hispanic high school, one a majority African American high school, and we're learning a lot, partnering with the community college and the school district. Most importantly, these students in this collegiate academy is like a school within a school. Their seniors will come here next year as full-time UNT Dallas students. So it would be high school students and college students. So that's what we're doing. I also want to say that our graduation increase, our percentage increase also leads the state. When I got here August of 2015, we had 475 graduates that year. This year, we had 859, and it's been a steady increase. You won't find another university in the state. So it's real easy, it's hard, but it's real easy to recruit. But if you don't work hard to keep students, they go in the front door and out the back. So what we're trying to do is work closely with students so they persist and they graduate. And the last thing I'll say is our students, not only are they from Dallas, but when they graduate, they're staying here in high-need jobs like school teaching, police officers, healthcare, accountants. We probably produce more bilingual accountants than any other university in the area. Well, I'm sure we do. But we're producing teachers, we're producing healthcare workers, so that's what we're all about. I'm going to leave a couple of brochures. Anybody wants them? Anybody, if they run out, I'm going to leave my card here. I'm going to stay for the meeting, but I'll leave a few cards here. If they run out and you want them, just call me, and I'll send them over to wherever you are. But anyway, thank you, Councilman, for giving me a chance to talk about the university. We're very proud of the progress we're making. Okay.
We're going to talk a little bit about park and recs. And Bob Mon, thank Bob Mon, he gave the city, helped us with $100,000 to finish the trail. $100,000. With that, John Jenkins, you know who's going to do your...
Guess what? You get me tonight.
Okay.
John Reynolds.
You got a good one.
Yeah. So, John Reynolds, we're going to give a presentation. Go ahead, not presentation.
Okay, I did an overview. You know, the trails is beautiful. Everybody know about Katy Trail, right? Okay, just imagine in a few years you'll be able to leave UNT, go all the way down to the new Sing Hill Rec Center, to Glendale Park, to Jockey, cross 310, cross 45 to the ATT Trail. You leave District 8 and you end at District 8. And that's a great trail. I mean, we're talking about trails. Thank Bob Munn for him. We were $100,000 short. He went and raised some money. There's a $2 million trail just from UNT to Singing Hill Rec Center. That's a phase we did not finish.
Okay.
Okay?
Where is this clicker? Okay. All right. You going to click
Can you
on it?
click it? Okay, you
I
say
can.
that.
I will. All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm John Jenkins. I was the deputy director as of yesterday, but as of this morning, I'm the interim director for the Parks and Recreation Department. I'm not John Reynolds, who's listed on the program, but I'm here to give a quick presentation, which I was told this afternoon I need to do it so no one else can be there. But I'm glad to be here again. So I'm going to go ahead and go through it. Let's see, what do I got to pick?
No, just arrow left, right arrow.
All right, there we go. Those of you who are familiar, the last time I was out here, I kind of briefed about the City Hills Replacement Recreation Center. You know, we have already completed phase 1 of the Recreation Center, and we're currently working on the senior edition, and we're also working on the gymnasium as far as the Senior Hills Rec Center. It's going to be one of our largest rec centers that we do have in our system, and it's one of our nicest and most beautiful rec centers that we have. Next slide. Okay. All right, that's just the layout of the Recreation Center. We're working on phase 2, which is the senior center, and we're also working on the gymnasium and the plaza. You can go to the next. Okay. Once again, this is just showing you some other components of the rec center, as far as the game room, which will be multi-purpose for activity rooms as well. We also have a recording studio, similar to what we have over at our Team Rec Center at our Baylor. I got the name of it. But We have another rec center where we have a teen tech center, and this is very popular with the teens throughout our system. Okay, also, as I mentioned about the gymnasium. Next. And also, the councilman wanted me to talk about today about the phase 2 of the connection. We already completed phase 1 up to what you see green, which is has completed, is already up to Crouch Road. And we're now starting on phase 2, which will run to the UNT campus all the way up to the dock station. Next. Okay. Where I just touched on the Runyon Creek, that's where you just saw the green, and it's coming across the street from the old Senior Hills Rec Center, if you're familiar with it. And this is where it's crossing Crouch Road, and then now starting the construction that runs to the new recreation center, which is probably about half a mile up the, so that was Crouch Road up there, and so now it's now coming across the street and now running up here to phase 2. Okay. All right. This is just another slide, but the total cost was $2 million. We received $1 million from Texas Parks and Wildlife, and we also received a $1 million match from Texas Parks and Wildlife, and we also provided the 2012 bond program for $900, but also UNT provided $100K, and we appreciate it. Next. And this is just basically showing you all our connections as we build out the trail system. The green is basically telling you the trails that we already completed, and you saw the pictures earlier. But this is the blue, where we're now making the connection down to the Dark Rail Station and through UNT. And I think that is it. Yes.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Let's say you guys
All right, well, the next one will be Michael Mendoza. He's our new Assistant Manager of Economic Development, and he's going to tell you about the TIF, the MMD, and how much money he got in the bank account to help everybody get this development going.
Thank you. All right, so I'm Michael Mendoza. As mentioned, I'm with the City Manager's Office, and I serve there as Chief of Economic Development and Neighborhood Services. One of the departments in that portfolio is Economic Development, and while I'm here, I want to recognize that my colleague in the City Manager's Office, Majid, is here as well, and I think he'll be taking up the next presentation. So, how many are watching the baseball game this week? Anybody? I just bring that up only because I'm pensioning.
Looks like you should, huh?
Yeah, I'm pensioning tonight as well. So bear with me as I go through this presentation that I've seen maybe once. So most of you all know, I'm assuming that you all know, there have been a few meetings here about this particular district, that we are in a tax increment finance district. So this was a district created a few years ago, and I'll explain a little bit about that later. But I want to start by saying that I understand that the last time you all gathered was probably, I want to say February?
Yes.
So just like Mr. Mong was explaining, I'll take his cue. Good things. I don't know if anyone's read this book called The Art of the Beautiful, and it talks about the art of, the beauty of art actually is in the making of art, right? Not necessarily what you see, but in the making. It's all process. You got to love the process. It takes one course at a time to graduate from this university, and that's a process that a lot of people get involved with, that requires a lot of support, that requires a lot of well, just involvement. And so that's where we are now. So since your meeting in February, there's been a lot of processes going on, and I'm happy to just say that there have been some advancements. And that's why we're here, to talk about the advancements. But we'll start, for those that aren't familiar with the TIF district, start with that. So the City of Dallas uses several economic development tools, and we have a toolkit to use. And you read about some of our tools when you read about some of the businesses that we're attracting to the city with tax abatements or incentives to do workforce training, incentives to expand their businesses. But there's another one, maybe a more silent tool that we have is called a TIF. And the city has been using TIFs for, I don't know, 30 years, what was that, 1988. And we have 19 current TIFs. In total, we've had 21 over these years. 2 of them have been sunsetted, City Place and St. Thomas. And if those of you that know where those 2 particular areas are, you'll see that the TIF has worked. So this is a tool that can work. It's proven to work. And I'll go in a few more slides here and talk to you about what that means. What is that process? How does it work? Go to the next slide. So it's a way for the city to reinvest funds, reinvest tax money. It's not a tax increase, but it's a way for the city to invest funds that are going to be taxed in a particular area. It's a place-based incentive. So it has a geographic boundary. And all the taxes are assessed. The value of all the taxes are assessed at the time of its creation. And that's where you get your base, right? And so after a good number of years, after investing in there, that base increases. And that increment, that change, is what gets reinvested back into that district. Okay? And most of it gets invested back into the district. The way our incentives are created here, 10% of it goes back to the general fund. And that's not forever. That's just for a defined period of time. Usually, I think in our case with the city, it's about 20 years. So after 20 years, all the increment, all the increase goes back into the general fund. Let's see if I missed anything. Okay, I think that's good. Okay, so this just kind of breaks out the way an increment flows back to the city and flows to a developer, right? So there may be a slide, I don't know if I passed it or not, but there are 2 ways that a TIF can be created. The city can initiate a TIF, right? Or a developer can initiate one through petition. And, did you go back?
That's number 4.
Yeah.
Well, let me see that.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So in this case, when a portion of that increment or that portion of that tax is distributed, we'll just follow the yellows here, and I'll just show you. So the yellow portion of that particular increment goes to the development in the district, portion of revenue due to the development that flows to the TIF district. And then the blue part of that particular tax goes to the general fund. And the red part is the amount of tax revenue that flows into the general fund or TIF or no TIF. I'm not really sure what that particular, I think that's a mistake there. Any additional revenues will go back to the general fund. So essentially what happens is you have a new investment, it increases in value, 90% of that value goes into the fund, and a board, the TIF board, decides how that fund gets invested. And oftentimes it gets invested in particular projects. It can get invested into things like trails or any kind of public improvement, but usually gets invested into infrastructure projects, right? So that's that's why we have our friends here from Dallas Water Utilities and from Public Works, because that's usually where those increments get invested back into. And then 10% goes back to the general fund. We'll go to the next slide. So in this case, our TIF here was created in 2017, and it was created, I told you before that there are 2 ways you can create it. One through the city can create it, the other is through petition or catalyst project. And in this case, Centurion American Development Group petitioned to have this TIF created. The city council agreed after review, and so we have our district. The district comprises 2 non-contiguous sub-districts. I think this is the brilliant idea of Mr. Atkins, actually. You can take credit if you want, but I think it was. To tie 2 non-contiguous areas, and by this I'll show you the maps areas. This particular area around UNT Dallas And then another area, way up in District, is it 13? 12, up in District 12, right? And so the increments in both areas go into one particular fund and they're shared. And the brilliancy of that is that it's a way to, frankly, to try to create some equity, right? Because we all know that the increments obviously grow a lot faster and they're a lot stronger in the northern parts of our city. But this is a way to get some funds back down here to the southern part of the city. So that's the equity part. So this is the sub-district up north. It's near the Texas A&M Extension. I want to say it's other people.
Texas A&M, right, yeah.
Yeah. That's its geographic boundary. And it's mostly a subdivision of homes, single-family residential homes. And then this is the University Hills sub-district. Goes all the way down to 45, obviously, Camp Wisdom, Process Weaver. All right, so the next steps for this particular TIF. This TIF, what did we say, was established in 2017. It's kind of been suspended for a while. A lot's been going on, and a lot has been going on because of some very important things. You can't turn on the water here, and you can't flush your toilets. And so that's our next step. That's what we're going to do. So those advancements that I talked about that have taken place since February are that we have identified a way and identified the costs associated with putting in the pipes and plumbing for the infrastructure. And so our next step now is to create this TIF board. And that TIF board will be created by the City Council. Mr. Atkins and Ms. Mendelson of District 12 will nominate, 9 people to serve on this TIF board and determine how that increment is invested. So that's their role. And each one of the TIF districts in the city, the 19 districts, has its own board. So we will be standing up that committee, if you will, that board, in the next probably 4 or 6 weeks, right? The TIF board has the ability to consider a boundary expansion. Obviously, that will have to go back to council if we do that. And to date, I want to let you know that the TIF has received 1 development application, which is currently under review. And the Office of Economic Development is reviewing that particular application. And we will hand that over to the TIF board as soon as that's stood up. Okay, next slide. Is there another slide? Yeah. Okay. So the other thing that
I said one thing about the TIF.
yeah, go
Before
ahead.
I get it. And the TIF, one thing that the city of Dallas and the county do not, they waive their taxes. But all the taxes from DST to school, if they get there, they do not waive there. So just think about American Airlines Center, it's a TIF, but all that taxes, the school board get their taxes, which is probably about $1 billion. So the school win on TIF. So we do give back the education. I want to make sure we point that out, because sometimes we don't say that.
That's a good point. Thank you. Okay. So I mentioned earlier that there are a lot of different economic development tools that can be used to spark investment in a particular area. Another place-based investment tool is what's something called the municipal managed district. And this is something that the city does not create. This is created by petition, by a developer, or by a group of people that decide, hey, we want to create an MMD, they're called, in a particular area. And University Hills has an MMD. I'm not sure, does it say when it was created? How many years ago was that? It wasn't that long ago. Was it the last legislature? Does anybody know?
17.
17, so about the same year. So TIF was created and an MMD was created in the same year. Okay? These are self-governed. It's a political subdivision. They're still part of the city of Dallas. It's just that this particular subdivision has the ability to issue bonds, raise money on its own, these tax-free loans to pay for infrastructure and other public improvements.
You might want to connect the dots. I mean, MUD can actually take the bond money from the tip or the deferred money from the tip and monetize it. So the secret of the MUD is the ability to get cash out of the tip ahead of schedule. You don't have to wait for the tip to actually generate the tax savings.
That's true. Did you create this, Jeff? What is your name?
I'm Kevin. I'm just an attorney representing a developer out here, so I'm just curious and I know this stuff.
I just wanted to make sure, because you probably know more than I do about
I
it.
don't know what you do, but I do know that the thing that people never talk about is why do you have a MUD and a TIF together? One monetizes the other. So you get cash now instead of waiting 10 years for the property tax.
Yeah, so, absolutely. So if you didn't catch that, I'll try to summarize it.
Good.
A TIF has no money. So Mr. Atticus said, you know, what do I have in the bank? I have nothing in the bank in the TIF. The TIF only has money after, as Kevin mentioned, after a certain amount of years, right? After that increment has built essentially a pool, a fund balance. One way to spark that fund balance, as Kevin just mentioned, is to trigger a bond issue to fund the TIF, and then it will reimburse the TIF as it goes along.
And another way to do it, because we do barbell tip. This is a barbell tip. So therefore, it's the tip enough dollars have money, it do bring money back here. It's just like the Red Bird and Valley do. So that's why we start putting the barbell tip. Just like the West Dallas, you know, it's a barbell tip, you know.
When you show the mud area,
It's the same as it took a.
Yeah, it is overlaid exactly on top of the TIF.
just that only that.
Yes, yes, sir. Yeah. So, this also, to tie back to what Kevin said, the city traditionally has not issued bonds for a TIF. Lee, back in the back, might be able to tell me if that's true or not, but I don't believe we have. So,
Never will.
we are, and Lee, by the way, for those of you who don't know, Lee used to work in the Office of Economic Development. Pointing to her. She and I have been friends a long time. She knows a lot about this. She's a former banker. But we are considered as a city to issue our own bonds to fund the TIF. And that's one of the things that we're evaluating right now. We hope to make that determination in the next probably 2 weeks. So, next slide. Well, here you go. Answer your question. This is the exact overlay of the MMD. If we put it on top of the TIF, it would be the same footprint. Next slide. Well, we talked about the municipality, these MMDs can issue bonds. They do not impact the city's balance votes. That is an advantage, yes. And then I'm happy to answer any questions before we move on to water utilities. Hopefully I didn't complicate things anymore. If I did, I'll be around here for a while. I can answer your questions.
All right. The next one would be Dallas Water Utility. You know, they the one who generally have all the money, so. Yeah, okay, with Richard, if I know Richard.
Good evening. My name is Richard Wagner. I'm the Assistant Director for Dallas Water Utilities and the Business Operations Program. So all that we've talked about so far with the creative financing, how do we pay for this, that's all leading to what I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about, and then Christina with Public Works is going to kind of talk about, you know, what are we going to get out of all this. So last February when we met out here, this was the slide that we were working at that point. We had our consultant on board and they came up with a kind of a master plan for the entire area. What is it going to take wastewater infrastructure-wise to serve this entire area? How much is it going to cost? And that's what we presented to the public back in February. I think a couple of the advancements and some of the things that I'm happy to see to report now is that all of those projects are now funded. We couldn't say that last year. So we're actually going to proceed with building them, which is going to be pretty good. And we've actually been able to reduce the cost of the projects from about what we thought was going to be $5 million down to about $4.5 million. So getting down to that number, and then some of the other financing ideas that Michael was talking about have now allowed us to fund the project. So I'll kind of go into a little bit of detail about what we're doing. So this graphic here kind of represents the entire build out for the major wastewater infrastructure. So the green dotted line represents the projects that are currently underway. So we've already installed a 10-inch wastewater main under the Wheatland Road that we've paved. It hasn't been connected yet, but we wanted to put it in under the road so that when the area did develop, we didn't have to come back and tear up the road in a couple of years to put that in. So that's eventually going to tie into the wastewater main that's going to be installed as part of the TIF district and the development that Centurion is working on. The red line represents the Runyon Springs branch, which is going to connect up there, and then on the west side of University Hills, we have the branch over there to provide service to the parcels that are on the west side. I think the one point that I want to make here is that the final design of our wastewater main is going to be kind of dependent on what the final alignment of Wheatland Road is. So when I talk about the projects later, that's kind of the driving factor on how we schedule the projects. So just a little bit of history, following up on what Michael had said. Back in April and August, we awarded the Wheatland Road construction, which installed the first part of our wastewater infrastructure in the area. In December of 2017, that's when the TIF was established, which eventually will connect the wastewater infrastructure in Wheatland up there. And at that point, I think that's when we got with Councilmember Atkins and city management, and they kind of said, yeah, we really need to have an overall plan for the entire area, how we're going to service and do it in the most efficient way possible. So that's when we awarded to our engineer in February of 2018 an analysis for the entire area, which generated that graphic, which then we're now moving into design phase 4. So the way we've structured it is we're going to do two contracts. We're going to do the first one on the west side of University Hills, which is going to be 8, 10, and 12-inch mains. Right now, most of you have probably we've reached out to you to get right of entry into the properties to perform field survey, which then will lead into the easement acquisition, which we hope to have complete in about a year and a half. And as soon as we get the easement acquisition done, that's when we're going to start construction. And we're thinking the construction should take about a year to do. So we think the total cost for that section should be about $1 million. DW under Chapter 49 is allowed to fund 30% of that, so we're going to fund $300,000, and then Michael and his group are going to provide the other funding. So the key to this one is, in order for DW to be able to maintain that main, we're going to need dedication of easements from the landowners before we can actually proceed with the construction. So the other contract is actually going to be the red line and the yellow line, which is going to be the major portion of it, all basically from University Hills all the way back to the east to Lancaster. So we're kind of in the same phase there, where we're trying to get right of entry from the homeowners so that we can go in there and do the field survey. The design complete and the acquisition and the construction are all lagging by 9 months to a year from the first contract, and that's to align with the schedule of Wheatland Road. Because whatever the final alignment of Wheatland Road is, that's probably where we'll put the wastewater main so that we can keep it under the road and then we don't disrupt any more private property than we absolutely have to. And then, of course, the key to this one, to getting into construction, is getting the dedication of the easements from the landowners. So with that, I will turn it over to Public Works.
Any questions?
Yeah, let me ask a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
So I'm looking at, first of all, with this improvement, are you saying that all the properties that you show on the map have capacity and pipe to the point you can get into and handle sewer and water both? Is that correct?
Say that again?
The properties that you show on the map, with this line that you constructed, all properties have capacity and access to water and sewer.
Yes.
And as you go through your funding, I see you saying DWU funding, so where's the rest of the funding coming from? Is that coming from the TIF that's in place, or is that coming from other sources?
Now, if I tell you, just,
Okay.
the money's there.
Okay.
We done figure a way how to get the money.
Yeah,
So
so,
it's fully funded. So it's not gonna come from the TIF, the MMD,
Yes.
it's fully funded. Money set aside, I done came up with the dollars, so we have
Yes, sir.
dollars to pay.
now I should follow up. So the wastewater mains that we're putting in represent the trunk sewers to serve the area.
Right.
So as the individual properties develop, whether it's the Centurion property, we know there's going to be other wastewater mains that need to be installed in there to serve. But we can't predict where that's gonna happen. So what we're doing as part of this project is to install the trunk areas so that every developer that comes in can install their wastewater mains to connect right in. So if, like some of the properties on the west side, if they don't develop anything, they can connect lateral right in. If they do develop and then subdivide or whatever else, or, turn into multifamily, on-site infrastructure is gonna have to be installed as part of that development, but we can't put that in now because we can't guess what that is.
But going to those lines, as far as easements and things are concerned, have you thought through that, or like Centurion property, if we have, is that line touches our property till we can get to it without having to go to a third party, or do we need to acquire other easements?
Depending on how the properties develop, you could have to require other easements. So most of them here touch every property that we go through, but there are some on there that, depending on how it develops, and if it subdivides in a way, then an easement will need to be created, but we just can't predict that at this point. We'll handle those as individual development projects like we would any other project.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Before, so I want to mention, because I think we have a few property owners here. After this meeting, we are going to be taking folks' names, numbers and such, and setting up individual appointments. Is that right?
That's correct.
So we'll have individual appointments with each property owner, if that's your wish, if you don't want to speak publicly like this. So just wanted to let you know.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
I'm not I guess we missed a couple of meetings, and so what do you mean when you say the wheatland alignment? Because right now, how I see it, it looks like you're going to basically take it to the Dallas line and away from Lancaster.
Yeah, so Christina is actually going
Is
to
that what you're
talk
going
about
to?
that.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
I'm
part
sorry,
of-
I didn't mean to jump ahead.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
part of the public works. There's 3 different alignments they're looking at to do the final extension of Wheatland.
Okay.
She's gonna go through that.
Okay, I didn't realize there was 2 different departments. Thank you.
So what is your timeline coming from the main, from Camp Wisdom, going all the way over to University Hills? What is your timeline on that?
Well, so we anticipate the entire job to be built in about a year and a half. That's kind of,
That's close.
that's for contract number 2. So the contract number 1, we're thinking about a year. It's a little smaller, it's a little easier, not as much involved. This one here is a lot longer path, and it involves, traffic concerns on University Hills Boulevard. So we anticipate this one to be maybe a year and a half, a year and 9 months, somewhere in there, to finish this
It's
section.
a year or 9 months?
No, a year and a half to a year and 9 months, 2 years max to build this section.
So if we donated the easement from the main that's coming under Camp Wisdom, can we make that come sooner?
So, yeah, a lot of our schedule that you see here, the design complete, we're pretty firm on. The easement acquisition is kind of the unknown. If the easement acquisition goes fairly smoothly, we can pick up some considerable time in that schedule. So this kind of represents the worst case, and if things go a little easier than what we were planning on, we can pick up a lot of time. And we'll know a little more about that once we get towards, maybe this time next year, we're gonna have a better.
I think you have to do the other side first and complete it, and you can work on both sides.
Yeah, well, we're planning on doing both concurrently. They're both gonna be under construction at the same time. It's just, we can get started on that one a little sooner because we don't have to wait on the Wheatland Road alignment to finish the design for this part.
And typically, towards the end of the design, we can hopefully solidify the easements. If we can, concurrent with the design, we can start with the construction immediately. So we can save between 6 to 8 months of the process, if there is the will and the desire of the property owners. The other thing that Richard didn't mention is that usually we will ask dedication of easements, but we also will need some temporary construction easements. So you wouldn't be surprised by that as well.
Yep.
And those we don't keep. That's just specifically for construction activities.
Yep.
Okay,
Any other questions?
public work.
I'm Christina Turner Milburn, the Assistant Public Works Director and City Engineer for the City of Dallas. And I'm here to talk to you about the roadway alignment. So the first slide here actually shows property owners that we did purchase right away from and easements for Phase 1A and Phase 1B of the Wheatland Road construction. And that'll mean a little bit more to some of you here when you see another graphic that's coming up. So this is going to be like, thank you. This is a little hard to see on the screen, but there are also 2 boards up here that show this information. So what this slide actually shows are pretty much all of the potential property owners that could be impacted by either the water, the wastewater, or the roadway alignments for these projects. So these are the potential property owners that we will be contacting to talk to you about right-of-way easements in these projects. So again, please make sure we have your phone numbers, your addresses, your contact information if you're here at this meeting and your property owners, so that we can get a hold of you. That's very important to us, as Councilman Atkins indicated. So a little history on the roadway alignment. Basically, if you kind of look to the right side of the slide, and we're going to go from kind of right to left. On Wheatland Road, we started with a Phase 1A project that basically went from Lancaster Road and went to the west. And our roadway cross-section out there, we have a 4-lane undivided roadway with curb and gutter, sidewalk, bike lanes, street lights, and associated drainage improvements. So we started Phase 1A in April of 2017. We just completed this in summer 2019. As I said, we started at Lancaster Road and went to the west. And Phase 1B of that project picked up where Phase 1A left off, and again continued to the west to the Lancaster city limits. And those also put in 8 and 10-inch wastewater lines. Started with an 8-inch line in Lancaster, and then it continued and moved up to a 10-inch. And it also put in a 16-inch water line. Now, Phase 2, which is what we're going to start discussing here in a moment, will pick up where Phase 1 left off. And it will continue and tie to University Hills Boulevard. Now, what you see here, basically, we started an alignment study in April of 2019 to talk about and discover essentially where this alignment of this Phase 2 roadway was going to be. Now, imagine, will you flip to the next slide for just a minute here? I have some information listed on this slide, but I'm actually going to talk about it in conjunction with the former slide, but I wanted you to see that it's here. I'm sure we're going to make this presentation available publicly, but I wanted to talk about it in conjunction with the actual graphic here. So we'll look at it. So option A is our blue alignment, and you can kind of see that on the bottom there. So essentially that blue alignment, it runs along the City of Dallas and City Lancaster city limits on the bottom, and it ties directly over to Wheatland Road at University Hills Boulevard. So a few things about that alignment. Basically on the west end, it's going to displace a DWU water meter bulb that services Lancaster right now. It also impacts about 8 property owners. We also have significant land in here that's also in the 100-year floodplain. So this has some impact to that as well. Option B is our magenta option. It also starts in the same spot and follows that alignment along the city of Lancaster on the bottom. It comes up a little bit further north and ties kind of a little bit further north of Wheatland Road. And it impacts 7 property owners, but it does minimize our right-of-way acquisition on there. And then our option C is our orange option, which again starts at the same place. But it comes up and allows us to use part of Kilo Drive up there and then tie in up at that area. One of the benefits of this is it only impacts 4 property owners. And it gives us our lowest estimate of right-of-way cost. And it impacts 0.12 acres in the floodplain. So if you're going to flip the next slide, Matthew. So our option A, our blue option, that option in the bottom, has an estimated cost of about $5.5 million. Our option B, that magenta option, has an estimated $3.82 million cost. And our option C, that orange option, is estimated at about $4.01 million. So the status of the next steps, as I mentioned, we started that alignment study in April of 2019. We're completing that this month. Part of that is this public meeting to get your input on these alignments. We'll be finalizing that preferred alignment between now and March of 2020. The next steps we're going through, we'll finalize that. We'll memorialize that alignment through City Council and get their approval. We'll begin those meetings with those affected property owners to discuss the preliminary right-of-way impacts. And we'll negotiate our final design contract with our engineering consultant, because right now all they've been contracted for is the alignment study. And then, once we do that, we'll start our final design in March of 2020, complete our design in March of 2021. In that midst of that, we'll begin our actual right-of-way acquisition once we have that final alignment tied down through survey. We'll complete that right-of-way acquisition in about a year, September 2021. Start the construction March of 2022 and be done in approximately September of 2023. From a funding aspect, we have several funding sources. We do have some federal funding in this project. It's about $3.4 million, and that will pay for about 80% of our project costs. Our 2017 bond program provides 20% of our construction match and all of our design and right-of-way funding, $1.8 million. And DWU construction funds will pay about $680,000 for that water line that I mentioned. So our total funding available is about $5.88 million for the project. And with that, if you have any questions. Yes, sir.
Some of the preliminary designs I've seen show Kilo Road being extended from University Hills to Lancaster Road. What happened to that idea?
We do not currently have that in our bond program. It is in our needs inventory, and it would be something in the needs inventory that we could look at as a future project. It's not currently in our program.
If you went orange, would that kind of accelerate that decision? Because that would make it so logical. If you're going to take Wheatland all the way up to Kilo, having a dead end in Kilo where it doesn't go anywhere doesn't make a lot of sense. So would that kind of accelerate the Kilo option? Maybe?
It would be something that we would look at in our future bond program. Planning for our future bond program will probably start middle of next year, give or take. So it would be something we could look at.
When Carl made the commitment to do $3.4 million in that first phase, get the road built, because they wanted to be a thoroughfare and go all the way to 35. Michael Mars stated that he would do a phase 2 from University Hills all the way to Lancaster Road of Kellogg. So I think that should be a conversation that should start on the phase 2. Because if CARG put the $3.4 million, which the city didn't think CARG would do it, and they did. And you got 1.8 out of the bond program, so you kind of just, the commitment was made to do a phase 2, so I think it's something you have to think about.
Any other questions?
Okay, with that, I think Centennial is here, talk about their project. It's on.
No, we're done here to leave.
Oh, he did? Okay, well, let's do it this way. Very easy. Did everyone sign in? Right? Okay, if you go back, Magic, to the infrastructure, this purple line, the map, let's see which one. Keep on that. Go back some more. This right here. On the west side of University Hill, is there any property owners who own property over there? It's in this meeting. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Okay, will you make sure you give the information you too? Is that you, right? Who will have this meeting? With the landowner?
Yeah.
You?
I can take it, yeah.
Okay. Make sure he have all your information. Because he gonna call a meeting with you to discuss your property here on this line. So, is there any property owners on this red alignment that go down here and down University Hill? How many is here? I don't think Robert, you one of them. So, Ed Oakwood, you represent somewhere, right? Just y'all two?
You need to be part of that.
That's one of you, 3 of them, right? So could you give your information to Richard? What I'm trying to do is, number one, we talk about a timeline, the schedule. He will have to meet with those owners, so therefore, you don't have to call me, you can call him directly and say, hey, we're gonna schedule a meeting, I need to get on your property, to survey, to do whatever needs to be done. And if he can get in a room at one time, or one-on-one, whatever, that be your call. Do not have a call in my office. You do have a problem trying to meet with Richard, you can call Andrew, and we make sure they get together and have a meeting. Okay? Is there any other question?
We're gonna try, Councilman, we're gonna try to reach out to the other property owners who haven't showed up.
Right.
Because if we wanted to activate this project.
So what I would ask, if you know your neighbors, your other property owners who were not here tonight, will you please pass a word to them? We did everything in our power to try to research, to try to find your address, your telephone number, your email address. It's very important that you reach out to your neighbors. Say, hey, neighbors, we are here trying to reach out to you to try to get on your property do the survey, because we need to do these right away, these easements. If we don't get this down, it's gonna hold up everybody's project.
So who else was there? I want to give you my business card so you can send me an email with your contact information. Thank you, sir.
So is this for only the people that are on the red line or wherever he pointed out?
Well, these are what are the impact of the infrastructure. This is a yellow line right here from Wheatland going all the way down University Hill to Camp Wilson. It's gonna impact some of those property owners also.
Okay, well, it's gonna impact us where they're looking at realigning the wheatland.
The wheatland,
So I
okay.
need to speak to somebody in regards to
Yeah,
that.
okay, now what we're gonna do is, there would be a PD sent to you directly, and your address, so it's any kind of question you'll be able to digest it. You can call our office, so you're willing to call and say, hey, this is my property number. If you look over here, if you look at this,
Will you talk to us one-on-one?
yeah, okay, if you look at this map here, this map shows every property owner. Yeah, but this is our problem is that we got. When we try to research, find who is the owner, what address we need a mail to, it bounces back. So as soon as we find out who owns the property, it can be one-on-one in a group, but we're gonna make sure that it's transparent, that everybody know we did reach out to you. Because sometimes we said, you didn't call me, you didn't reach out to me, I didn't know nothing about the meeting tonight. We don't want that to happen, because right now we're in the process to get $5 million somewhere, and we've been calling for infrastructure to make sure it's going there, and make sure y'all know what's right away is gonna go, or what's gonna happen at the end of the day. Is there any other question? Thank you for coming. Yeah, okay, Scott, right here.
Yeah, the right of way is still going on the back end.
No, there are 3 alignments of the right of way. We talking about infrastructure of the road.
Well, the infrastructure, the sewer.
Okay, Richard right here, Ms. Scott. This person needs to talk to, he can tell you the right, like, he gonna impact your property.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
I take it we're omitting or canceling number 7? We're not gonna get an overview of the development?
Centurion, they have to leave, but they have another engagement.
Is that part of your PDF?
Yes,
Okay.
we will send to you. So everybody sign up, you will have a whole PDF, and you can have their contact number, you're gonna talk to them directly.
Yes.
Okay? Thank you for coming.